Okay, Daddy chill. Daddy chill. Resonance system update notice. So a lot of you guys, you're either gonna be super stoked about the aspect that you have, or you're gonna be butt pissed about the aspects that you do not have. Alright, so without further ado, so I talked about some of the things in the previous video regarding the skill set, and I talked a little bit about some of the reso updates and all that, right? And how some of the reso changes actually mattered more. So like for example, aspects like Sally, Sally was one of those. Sander, I can't remember, no, maybe not Sander, but Gabrielle as well, her reso changes are pretty massive. Sienna and, oh my god, Cecilia as well. But anyway, here is a TLDR version. If you do not even want to watch the video, you can just take a look at this, take a screenshot. These are like my quick updates and my opinions about the aspects here. Obviously, it doesn't cover everything, but let's start with Donar. And I have a feeling I know why they put Donar and Yuyao at the top. If you do not know, don't worry, you don't need to know. So, massive change here, right? Thundercrack passive, when Thunder Blessing reaches max stacks, gains 1 turn instantly. Oh my god, I needed this. Okay, so I was saying the whole time that the only way for you to fix the speed cleave meta, for example, is to give Donar AP whenever he gets hit, because that will allow him to Thundercrack a little bit easier. But now, what they're doing is allowing Thundercrack to just go off instantly, which is going to change his kit dramatically, right? And next, Explosions in the Sky resets the cooldown of Thundercrack. Now, this one is a little bit iffy, I think. And the reason why I feel like it's a little bit iffy is because you're always going to start off with your third skill, and then that's when you gain Thundercrack afterwards, right? Or rather, that's when you activate your passive. So, the way that they want you to play is to use your first skill first, get your Thundercrack on cooldown, and then Explosions in the Sky afterwards to reset your cooldown, which is kind of weird because this gives you the immunity and it gives you the defense buffs as well. Which means that I think they want you to pair him up with like aspects like Gabrielle, you know, for him to work pretty well, and running him on manual as well. So that is that. Let's not waste too much time. Okay, Yuyao. So now AP reduction changed from 50% I think to 75%. This is her third skill, and this is pretty huge. So now her passive doubles the AP boost that she gets. So whenever one of your allies gets debuffed, she will gain 40% AP 1 time per turn. And this, her third skill, if an ally is stunned, ability cooldown -1 turn, which is okay. Now Tiye, also pretty decent. So her Devouring Void, which is her third skill, now will no longer miss. Mind-blowing, this is so huge, but the thing is you need to be R6 of course. And this is pretty decent, so she has hasty action on her kit, which increases her speed by 20. But obviously your skills have to be on cooldown, right? Now moving on, Asenath. Okay, so this is an interesting part. Take a look at this R6 that she has here, Lotus Steps. When Lotus Mark is triggered, heals its carrier by 15% of their max HP. So I think this is something very similar to what she was in the past, back then in the beta server, where she actually healed her allies whenever they triggered a Lotus Mark. But I think back then it was like a 50% healing or something crazy like that. But it's really nice that she has this, and especially since she's probably going to be free to play. We have yet to check that out. And also she has hasty action, which increases her speed by 18. Very nice. Now Djoser, so I was talking about this earlier in the previous skill change video, right? So let's take a look at Djoser here. So I'm going to show you Djoser's skill set really quickly here, especially his third skill, and then going back to his reso. Now Bull Rage's chance of ignoring debuffs is increased to 100%, so he's going to be quite relevant in APAC moving forward. Daylon has some changes, but it's not that much of a big deal. And I'm going to skip all the 3 stars, I think, all the rare aspects, because their changes are not that game-breaking in my opinion. They are not much to talk about. Okay, so now Mona, she has kind of like a weak buff. It is a buff, but it's kind of weak. So when her HP is at 100%, crit increases to 25%, okay. Moonshot, upon killing an enemy, Lunar Hail's cooldown -1 turn, which makes her a little bit better as a fodder farmer, but there is no such thing as fodder farming anymore, so that is something to take note of. However, she might be pretty decent in, like, let's say the Sonic Rift, because it's like waves of enemies, right? So she might actually be quite good at that. Skip. Okay, now Jiang Man. Okay, so Jiang Man, this third skill change over here, I think this is pretty... Sorry, this is her passive. Her passive change over here is actually pretty nice. So she's less reliant on Avatara, even though the point of Avatara is so that she can counter-attack when the enemies do not have Netherbloom debuffs. But now your chances of counter-attacking when enemies have Netherbloom is 100%, which is very nice. Now Celine is getting some increase to her accuracy and her speed and blah blah blah, but for the most part, not such a big deal because this is like, who cares? Now Kara, a little bit of a gain as well, so her Doomstroke, which is her third skill, targets AP -15%, which is kinda nice. Very useful for Chronos indeed. Now Louis. This is like sick, dude. Rage Avatar, upon killing the target, attacks all enemies, damage 50% of overkill damage. So if you use your third skill and you overkill a height, right, for example, so I was talking about how Louis was kind of nerfed because you had to use your third skill now to kill the height, or to guarantee a kill on the height, but the overflowing damage, 50% of that is just going to go on to everyone else, which can be quite sick because his Rage Avatar can I think can deal upwards of like 60-70,000 damage that I've seen in PvP at least, which is like a massive 50%. This is a massive nuke, dude. It's a massive AoE nuke. Now, Eira is gonna get a significant buff in my opinion. So Sea Breeze Sonata, which is her third skill, it now grants Brisingament's Watch to one ally for 2 turns. This is really good, so that one ally is just gonna gain AP whenever your allies take more turns, and I think it also reduces the allies' cooldown. I'm not sure whether it actually comes from this or not. Now, skip. Okay, so Falken here, it also inflicts speed down on the target for 2 turns. So this is why I say that he might be decent in PvP as a speed lead, although it's just 20%. So more so for tanky teams. So if you're able to inflict this on the enemies and reduce their speed as well, this is actually not bad. I would say this is decent. It's a decent change. Now Louis, not much to talk about. He just deals a little bit more damage to enemies with more debuffs. Tang Xuan, okay, great. So I want to talk about this, right? So change of his second skill, Enchanting Dream. Instead of absorbing enchantments, grants corresponding effects based on the number of enchantments. We do not know what those are, by the way. Now, if Tang Xuan has an enchantment, 20% chance of launching a pursuit attack. So this is the interesting part. He might actually be quite relevant in some content, I would say. Although it's just 20%, I'm wondering if this actually stacks to 60%, because if it does, then this is actually pretty decent. And now, R6 changed, dude. His first skill, I believe, Righteous Anger. The number of targets taking splash damage increases to 4. Holy crap. This is good. But one thing I need to double check is this pursuit attack, does it launch more Enchanting Dreams or does it launch more Righteous Anger? Because I think that changes a lot, isn't it? Now, Fabrice, his second skill, Love Sonata. Not only are you going to give attack up and 100% AP onto your ally, you also grant speed up to all other allies aside from the target, which is really good because he's going to give himself that speed up buff most of the time. Now, Arcana is going to be a little bit more geared towards stealing AP, but it's not going to change the fact that he sucks. Okay, so Sander, right, his new effect on his second skill, Corrosion, has a 50% chance of landing a stun right now. So he has 2 stuns on his kit with a lot of AP manipulation on his kit. He's really quite good right now. Now, Alexa has another buff to her Kiss of Nightingale, which grants immunity to the ally other than being stunned. This is not quite the same as what her current third skill does, which is dispels 1 debuff from this ally at the beginning of their turn. So the moment you drop Kiss of Nightingale onto the ally, they are not going to be debuffed because they're going to be immune, and at the same time they're going to lose all the debuffs that they have as well, which is another nice add-on, especially in APEP. Okay, so Heng Yue, this is another good change. Now take a look at this. Undying Elixir, which is a passive. This ability takes effect twice every turn, dude. She's still going to be very relevant in APEC in my opinion. This is so powerful, by the way. This passive, it's so strong. Now, Luo Yan, he's just going to give himself Death Tome when he uses his life skill, which is his second skill. So now 2 of your allies would have Death Tome, 1 being himself. Now, Chloe, honestly, this is quite sad. Gains a bonus attack at the end that attacks all enemies. I kind of feel like she should attack all enemies first before landing her third skill, or rather landing her RNG attack, because you want to do AoE damage first before having your randomness take place, right? You do not want to accidentally pop one enemy off and then this AoE attack becomes less efficient. But all in all, I guess it's just like extra damage and all that, so it's okay. Now Raven, her second skill would increase all of the enemies' cooldowns by 1 turn as well, which is really sick. But of course, the targets need to have no buffs, which is the whole point of her third skill here. And just a slight change, or rather it's a big change to the Raven users. So now building her as an offensive Esper actually makes more sense because you inflict defense down first before damaging the enemies. Now Catherine, yeah, she's gonna have quite a significant improvement as well, but it's not gonna matter too much if it's your Catherine. It's gonna matter a lot if it's like the enemy's Catherine. Especially in like the tower content. Now Pritzker, as if he needed a buff, right? Wisdom's Name has a 60% chance of inflicting speed down. This triple hits, by the way, so it's going to have a almost certain guaranteed chance of inflicting speed down. On top of that, there are stuns as well, and there is a cooldown reset. Dude, this is so sick. Okay, Nama. Interesting change, interesting change. I want to know, right, for this effect over here, Will of Fate. When Burning Sun reaches max stacks, which is now 12, cast his third skill. Does this put his third skill on cooldown or not? It does not actually clarify. So if you're running a buff team, this is going to be so sick, dude. You can just keep buffing your team and then like, I don't know, cooldown reset and all that kind of good stuff, right? You can use like Anki Chai, Alice, whatever, Unas, whatever, right? And you can throw a lot of Emblazoned Strikes. I think this is quite interesting. So you don't even need him to be fast now. You just need him to have a lot of attack and just protect him like crazy. And he's just going to automatically attack anyway, when it's not even on his turn, right? So pretty sick. I really like this. I think this might make him a little bit more relevant as well. And more stacks just means more damage for him because the stacks add damage. Now Liling, okay, so his third skill, now each of his hits will absorb 10% of target's AP, which is kind of like a nice buff, I think. So he can absorb up to, I think, what, 30% AP from the enemies. which I think is quite insane because now he's gonna instantly gain a new turn, right? I mean, you think about it, in Point War, you attack 5 different enemies, isn't that like 150% AP? So he's just gonna instantly gain another turn and he's just gonna one-shot with his second skill. I think this is a very nice buff for Li Ling in my opinion. Now, although I don't want to talk about rare espers, I think Lawrence should have some worthy mention here, which is when an ally is currently not alive, that means when one of your allies are dead, her speed increases by 20. That allows her to cycle her turns better to revive your allies again, which I think is pretty nice. Nothing much to talk about for Jacob, and for Ren Si, also not that much to talk about. The standoff just gets increased to 2 turns, which is like the main thing here. But in my opinion, right, his main thing was just having the standoff once, and that's about it, so that he can throw his third skill. Having it to 2 turns is just gonna make runs extra long, especially when you're doing some PvP runs. Now next for Tricky, this is a buff, so Gambit. So HP reduction will no longer be less than 15% of target's max HP. So previously, if the enemy had 15% HP, when you trigger his Gambit passive, you actually remove just 5% of his HP. But now, what the change is, he will always reduce 15% or more of the target's max HP, but it will not kill the target, which is a really big buff. I would say this is a pretty big buff, especially for PvE content like the tower. Now Lin Xiao, her first 2 main reso upgrades are not that significant, because this one you need your ally to die, and this one is like after casting a non-basic ability, which is like 2 skills down the road. But the main change is Light of the Tiger. It increases her crit damage by another 40%, which makes her a little bit more dangerous. But then again, most people do not necessarily use her for her damage. Most people nowadays use her for her defense break. Okay, scrolling down a little bit, we have Long Mian, Thorn of Frost. Upon successfully granting speed down, gains speed down for 1 turn. What the hell does this even mean? He gives himself speed down? What? Okay, height. So major change. I think now he's a lot stronger than before. So let's take a look at R6 first. New effect, right? His passive. At the start of combat, you gain 10 stacks. He's instantly going to revive. You don't even need to buff him, you don't even need to debuff him. He's instantly going to be able to revive at the start, which is huge. When any ally is currently not alive, your crit damage goes up by 40%, and on top of that, Reaper, his passive gets another upgrade. His stacks no longer expire, so as long as you start losing espers along the way, right, for example, you're going to gain those stacks, and you're also going to have your crit damage increase by 40%. So he's quite decent, I think, or rather he's very powerful in Fafnir. I think. But I think this matters a lot more for PvP, especially this one over here, his R6. Now Gaius, I didn't think that they're going to buff him, but they did buff him. Oh my goodness, at least give him like a weaker reso effect, right? But no, they decided to push him even further. So, Thunderstorm and God King Thunderstorm. So in his normal mode, all allies accuracy plus 20%. This is huge. This is so big. It's a passive effect. It's a passive effect. And in his God King mode, his passive effect is allies crit rate goes up by 20%. Why does he even need that? I mean, okay, thank you so much. I can definitely make do with this, but why does he need all these extra stuff? Like, why don't you just give him, like, you know, when your ally is dead, then increase his increase his crit damage by whatever, you know? Why give him an immediately effective passive? He don't need that. And this is just like the cherry on top, right? When he kills an enemy, he heals himself. But, dude, what the heck? Thunder Judgment and God King Judgment. The lightning attacks 6 times this time around, no longer 5 times. His damage just went up by another 20%. Okay, so small update to Biondina. She has a pretty decent buff. So now their way of dealing with her RNG is to increase the number of targets that she can dispel, which is not really the thing. She just needs to be smarter with her dispel, and she no longer has a condition for ignoring defense. So if the enemies have buffs, she's still going to ignore defense, basically. Now Gabrielle, immunity extended to 3 turns, dude. She's so good for APEP, right? She's so viable for APEP right now. And now Sally, okay, so I wanted to talk about this. I'm so excited about this. So her Universal, which is her second skill, heals all allies, healing 15% of target's max HP. And her R6, dude, this is so crazy. Sally can now take action while her third skill is in effect. And she gains Sweet Harvest for 1 turn at the start of combat. This is the biggest thing for her kit. She's instantly effective at the start of combat. So running her slow actually makes a lot of sense right now. You don't need to use stuff like, I don't know, Fabrice just to push her AP up, just to use her third skill. You don't need to use any of those nonsense anymore. She's instantly effective. This makes her so good for everything, right? So good for... Oh my goodness, Sally has the right buff. Now, Ollie is just a much better turn 2 advantage Esper right now. So his passive has an increased invincibility and recovery period, which is just very irritating. That's about it. And he also reduces damage he takes by 20%, which is huge. This is very big for turn 2 Espers. So your objective is to get hit first, so that maybe one of your allies die and not Ollie, right? And not Ollie, that's why this is so important. And if your ally dies, you're just going to protect him, give your ally invincibility and recovery for 2 turns. And then his Law of Duat, upon landing a crit, you then reduce the passive cooldown by 1 turn. So this is the whole point of his kit right now, is to be a turn 2 advantage Esper. And this is really nice. It's a very good update for his kit. Now, Unas, oh my god, I want to delete the game right now. I'm just kidding, but take a look at this shit. This is nonsense, dude. His third skill grants attack up to all allies for 2 turns. Who came up with this? And upon a crit, 20% chance of dispelling 1 buff from the target. Are you serious? He's now a buff stripper. Okay, granted it's just 20%, but he's also a buff stripper. On top of that, he is an attack buffer. And on top of that, his first skill, Follow the Wind, upon a crit, all allies AP plus 5%. And this skill, I think it triple hits, right? So it increases all allies AP by 15%. He's a permanent battery, he's an attack buffer, he's an immunity buffer, he's a dispeller, he's a stripper, I mean. What? This is so broken. He is so incredibly broken. Anyone who has an R6 Unas right now, you are flying on top of everyone else. Okay, we're just gonna skip Lin, who cares? Anesidora, they decided to compensate by giving her a stun extension to 2 turns on her second skill, which is like, no thanks, man. Just return us the old Anesidora, dude. Now, Lucas has a pretty decent update, so his first skill, if the target has 0 AP, you inflict stun, which is okay. It's very tame as compared to the Unas, am I right? And especially the guys as well, what the hell. Now, Pillar of Light, the final hit's AP reduction has been changed to AP absorption, I guess so. Okay, so now Alice, this is an important thing. Okay, so take note, for Alice users out there, this might not be good. This might not be a good change for her. Assisting allies AP plus 20%, this can potentially ruin your entire Dislyte Lens team. Because if your team just go out of hand, like their AP is just moving all over the place, it's not exactly a good thing, even though in most cases it might seem like it's a good thing. But chances are using her even for like ritual miracles is no longer going to be a hack, because by accidentally assisting the wrong Esper, you might actually push the AP of the Esper that you didn't want and maybe let loose some of the buffs that you needed in the first place. Like for example, Q's debuff or whatever it might be. So this is actually possibly a nerf to Alice and she might become extremely irrelevant from here on. I wouldn't be surprised if people just stop using her altogether. Now for Bonnie, she has some extra effect to her second skill, which increases the ability cooldowns of the target by 1 turn and it triggers 1 time per turn, so at most 1 cooldown increase, I think. And now Clara, now her third skill, immunity extended to 2 turns, which is okay. And her normal attack, healing times changed to 3 times, so it increases from 2 to 3 times, which I think is a pretty decent buff, especially since you have an R6 Clara, right? Now as for Taylor, he gains a shield on his third skill, nothing much. Death Guard Black and Death Guard White, they have massive changes to their third skill, so take a look at this, right? Change Netherworld Hold. Instead of granting himself Create Up, you now grant your entire team Create Up, which might be decent. It might be decent. But I think the more important one is the White Twin. So his third skill, instead of increasing his own speed, you increase all allies' speed. So I think he's going to be the next replacement to Anesidora. People are just going to be using the twins a little bit more often in PvE content. They're not going to be using Anesidora anymore. So I feel like this is a well-needed buff, especially since these two are going to be like free-to-play Espers for new players. Now, not much has changed for Nicole, I think. Not very interesting. And oh my god, Cecilia. Take a look at this. Her second skill, Revived Allies AP Boost, is increased to 100%, dude. That's so crazy. When she revives your allies, all your allies are just gonna instantly take a turn. This is so freaking broken. So broken. This is the same reason why she is no longer going to be like a D tier Esper. She's probably gonna go all the way up to S tier, or even like God tier, or even beyond S tier. This is so useful for so many PvP content. Oh my goodness, certain Espers are just getting everything right. Look at Sienna right here. Her third skill stuns extended 2 turns. Oh my god. And do take note that the cooldown is also reduced. And if there's an ability on cooldown, which is like almost certainly all the time, her speed is also increased by 20, which is crazy. And not only that, her second skill increases attack and speed to 3 turns. Oh my goodness, I'm going to start fully resonating my Sienna, honestly. From now on, I'm just going to focus on Sienna. She's going to be so overpowered for PvE content. Now, I'm going to skip some of the Espers that don't really make too much of a difference, like all these Espers here. Okay, so Tever. I feel like this might be a nerf in my opinion, right? So take a look at this, right? So his Nico Gift Box. Now, before attacking, inflicts defense down on target for 2 turns. That's good, right? That is good. But take a look at this. Change Nico Box. The condition for triggering and removing Nico Curse has been changed to when an enemy with Nico Box is attacked by Tever. Previously, the condition was if the enemy dies. So this is huge, because right now if you land a defense down and you kill the enemy with 1 hit, you're not going to trigger any Nico Curses because you did not technically attack the enemy when he had the debuff. Because I think what they're trying to aim for is you attack the first time and then you land the debuff and you attack again because of his passive, which triggers the effect. But the thing is, right now there is one chance, right? There is one slip up here where if you deal too much damage to the enemy, they die on the first hit, you do not pop the Nico Curse effect, which could be an amazing nerf in Tever's kit in my opinion. Now, Ahmed just got jacked, dude, like amazingly jacked. So his passive here, when an ally with HP below 30% is attacked, aka your height, he attacks the attacker and then obviously he heals your allies. So this is like brain dead gaming in my opinion when running him with the Zeus relic set for example. And if there's an ability on cooldown, dude, his speed goes up by 20%, he becomes more efficient in landing stuns on his Zeus set, and he becomes more efficient in landing heals as well. Very amazing. And of course, yeah, why not, right? Supporting Song grants extra 2 speed, why not? And then Jiang Zuli, he has one effect here which targets kill in demon mode can't be revived, but I don't feel like this really changes too much for his kit because in most cases when he kills the enemy, it's almost game over in my opinion. Now they try to make Aurelius a little bit more relevant by no longer removing the freeze from the target, which nah, he still sucks. Okay, Zora, she has an AoE defense break on her first skill. Very insane. Well, maybe not insane because of her typing, but I think she has some relevance here, and take a look at this as well. So whenever an ally attacks, Zora has a 15% chance to assist with her second skill, which then bounces back into her first skill for more defense break, which I think is okay. Quite interesting, although the percentage chance is just 15%. But I guess she works really well if Espers will take a lot of turns. So like for example, Lewis and Elliot now, his new effect here, which is so stupid, right? Pure Enlightenment, this ability cannot be resisted. This should have been in his third skill all along, dude. Now, Brewster, big change. Huge, massive change, dude. Look at this, his R2, at the start of combat, he gains 3 reload stacks. He's immediately useful at the start. This changes his kit entirely. I'm no longer going to consider him being like a mid-tier Esper or something like that. I think now he's really very upper tier. He's really quite strong right now. So these 3 reload attack stacks would then give him 36% AP, but the most important thing is your allies just need to take a turn and he's always going to attack instantly, and that is so broken because he carries the defense break as well. So when the target's max HP is above Brewster's, damage plus 10%, and your attacks deal splash damage to one more random enemy. So at the start, you're already gonna land like AoE splash damage, right? Or rather like double hits. This changes his kit a lot. This really changes his kit tremendously. Now surprisingly, Abigail didn't get much of a buff because I think she's really pretty good. Okay, Li Guang, yeah, so this is an important change here. Upon successfully stealing a buff on her second skill, all ability cooldowns of hers -1 turn, triggers 1 time per turn. This is good. This is really good. This allows her third skill to come back more frequently to increase the AP of your entire team. And when there is an ability on cooldown, speed plus 18, it's always good to have hasty action on Espers like this. So she's going to be very relevant in Fafnir in my opinion, right? And now Everett, he also buffs himself. He also protects himself rather. But this though, Valhalla Guardian, upon a counter attack, you heal all allies as well, healing 15% of this attack's damage. So you might want to build a little bit more offensively, although I think most of your Everetts out there are all very offensive right now. Now for Ashley, her third skill would grant shield to all allies for 1 turn, which I think is okay, I think it's fine. And her normal attack will grant herself Bifrost stack, which is good. And now instead of landing a double attack with her first skill, she would then gain another turn, which I think is really good. So she has more flexibility in like landing her other debuffs and all that, so it's very nice. And finally, Fatum Sisters, no big deal, nothing, not much change in my opinion. I'm not too sure what this means. AP reduction takes effect in both hits. Does that mean what? You reduce up to 80% AP? I'm not actually very sure what this means. But they also have like a 50% chance on a double hit to inflict misrate out on the target for 2 turns, which is like, who cares? Oh my god, I'm losing my voice, and thankfully we are at the end of this list. I have been recording for like 30 plus minutes, this is crazy. Anyway, let me know your comments down below. What do you think about the changes here? It's a lot. It's really a lot, and I can't believe I actually digested everything. But obviously I haven't noticed everything as well, so like I might be missing on some synergies here. There might be some good use of certain aspects in certain content that I didn't consider. Let me know down in the comments below. I'll be very curious to know what you guys have to say about the resonance system update. Oh my goodness. Alright, let's call it a day, man.